There's this kind of funny thing that I do where, on one hand, I'm very aware of the social, cultural demands, pressures to be better than you are all the time, to always be improving, getting better, faster, stronger, quicker, smarter, richer, more popular, more fit, rest more, be more. This is one side that I'm very aware of and try to deconstruct. And really, that's where becoming obsessed plays its role. Deconstructing, or maybe just bringing it to the forefront of our minds more often, that we get to choose to grow, and we also get to choose to not grow sometimes. We don't always have to be in periods of growth. We don't always have to be learning new skills. We don't always have to be actively trying to be better. And it's funny because as I say that, I'm really thinking about the ambitious people in my life that are always pushing to be better. And really, really, I picture women. And then there'll be that moment in my brain where I see some lazy 36-year-old who lives with his parents and plays video games all day or something. I don't think they're listening. But maybe sometimes we do need a little bit of extra pressure to be better than what we're doing. That's besides the point. But maybe it's also good that I said that, because maybe sometimes we feel like that's actually what we're doing. We feel like we're not doing enough. That's why we always have to be more. It can be really easy to look at other people's lives and you almost feel not as if you're comparing yourself to that one person. We're comparing yourself to the collective, where one person has this figured out, another has that figured out, and we have a third thing that neither of them have. But we don't compare apples to oranges. We're comparing our oneself to the whole of people. So that is one side, one dimension of what truly occupies my brain. So much of my thought, my experience, my experimenting. It's not really because I think you need it as much as I know I need it. Because the other side is me having a day where I watch 2 movies, get the bare minimum of work done, go on 2 walks leisurely, and on those walks think about, oh, maybe if I started doing EFT tapping, I would finally feel like my best self. If I just went to the functional medicine and kept doing all the supplements to get my system where it needs to be, if I go to the psychotherapy, even though I am literally making my current passion, my current life's work about not feeling like you have to be better just for the sake of being better, I still find my baseline thoughts being, how can I just be better? How can I just have more consistent energy? How can I just super energetically and efficiently and productively and restfully run and manage 3 companies? I just caught myself doing this. You probably can hear the wind and the footsteps and the birds. It's actually really gorgeous. And that's why I hit record, because how is it that in the same breath, I'm giving myself grace and acknowledging that I am where I am, and in the same breath, thinking about, oh, if I just did, maybe EFT's the magic pill that's going to help. It's helped other people. And I do think there's Personally, I'm really big into like working on my nervous system right now. There is not a right answer. There is not even an answer here. This isn't right. This isn't wrong. It's just part of my human existence. A big part of it. A big part of what I wrestle with to explore what living a life I'm obsessed with means. It's kind of funny because I always say the pursuit of happiness is kind of a curse. Because if you're pursuing something, you're probably not experiencing it. You're trying to get it instead of having it. And weirdly enough, that makes a huge difference. And so by creating this podcast and sharing my journey to becoming obsessed, which is really just sharing my thoughts along the way, speaking to people and asking questions I'm curious about. Am I not chasing instead of having and being and existing in? And I don't know that the answer to that is yes or no. It's probably a little bit of both, and it would probably be a little bit of both even if I wasn't doing the podcast. I think it's kind of full circle. I started this conversation by talking about, in a way, being more and understanding when we feel pressure to be more, that's not what we actually want to be. And then also taking that time to rest, allowing ourselves to just exist. And it just makes me wonder if it's not just being more and being better, but it's having a life worth obsessing over, that I should be doing more so that I can have the life I want to have. I don't think this podcast is self-defeating, but I do think most things where you put your focus, your life will follow. And so I try to be careful of not having this be a podcast about having the perfect life or fixing your lifestyle into something completely different or chasing my version of obsession. What I really want this to be is a nudge, a reminder, a conversation starter, and sometimes even permission for you to tune in to that little voice in your head that you ignore. The voice that says, what if? The voice that asks, is there more? The voice that asks, am I settling? Because I think that is the antidote to being bigger, faster, stronger, healthier, richer for the sake of it. That coming back to oneself is what's going to make it so that you're building a life you're obsessed with, not for the sake of having something other people can be obsessed with, but for the sake of sleeping well at night and waking up excited. I used to say a lot that this podcast is about building a life worth jumping out of bed for, because I'm not really one who jumps out of bed anymore, honestly. I actually have a couple times this week, but that's because I'm traveling and I'm 2 hours ahead of my normal wake-up time. It's no secret, and maybe you'll think this is up for debate, but to me it's really not. But it's no secret that, at least in the US, our culture really doesn't teach, prioritize, heck, sometimes even respect tuning into yourself, listening to your own intuition. We're so hyped up on being an individual, but only an individual that gets along within the collective. It's kind of funny that way. Here's one example of that. I was recently invited to 2117. I was recently invited to this, it was called The Art of Learning, and it was just a group of like 6-8 people talking about learning and the art of learning. And it was pretty just like informal, get people together, talk about a common topic. At one point, we were just talking about AI and the internet, and somebody made a comment that AI only knows what has been published. AI doesn't know how humans communicate without words, or all of the communication that happens that hasn't been articulated and put on the internet. And then it got me thinking how if we want to know something, 9 times out of 10, we look externally for the answer. 9 times out of 10, it's like, I'll just Google it. I'll ask ChatGPT. I'll let somebody else do the thinking for me. And in that conversation, I just had this moment of realization. Like, yes, the internet has a lot of information, of course, but what if we started prioritizing our own self as the ultimate resource? Learning from ourselves how we feel, what situations make us feel like, what we want, how we want to show up in the world, instead of relying on the internet or friends or external sources to provide the answer. I think of women who go to a doctor and have doctor after doctor dismiss how they feel or their pain or their symptoms and chalk it up to anxiety or whatever else. And those women who knew in their own source of knowing, of wisdom, of being, of intuition, that was not the answer, that something was wrong, that they needed help. And there's so many other examples of that. That's the end of my thoughts on this for now. I would love to hear yours. I am a voice note girly. If you haven't noticed, most of my solo episodes are really in voice note form. Find me on Instagram. Send me a voice note of your thoughts on this, of your experience on this, of where you fall in the balance. Or even if you're like, no, Teresa, that part doesn't bother me. Here's what does. Here's what I'm balancing. Here's the contradictions I'm experiencing. Contradictions are not bad. Nothing is one thing all the time, and humans sure weren't meant to be. So find me at Becoming Obsessed Pod or Teresa A. Jean. Send me a voice note. Send me your thoughts. And if you really want to help me out, I would love for you to leave a 5-star review of the podcast wherever you listen. It helps to get the word out to more people, to help them deal with living a life that they truly love and what that means and how to get there and how to balance it all, and gives them a place to not be alone in that journey. Also, I haven't been posting about this a ton, but we officially have BOP shirts. I took inspiration from an email autoresponder. So they say, unavailable, out living my life. OLML, out living my life. It's the new out of office. They're really dope. I'm really happy with them. I'm really excited about them. I don't have the sales page up for them yet. And it's a little hard to just order them online because each one is different. I thrifted 80 shirts at thrift shops, got them printed and designed locally in Omaha, Nebraska. So they all look a little different. But if you want one, send me a DM. Tell me the fit that you like, the style, the size. Send me some details. I'll see what I have that fits your style. All right, y'all. Let's go get obsessed.